You can really identify people with ADHD now. I feel like that kid in Sixth Sense. I see ADHD people. If I go to a barbecue and someone I've never met before comes up and goes, oh, hello, I'm a bit mad because I've just had a coil fitted, I think ADHD. You know.
So Shaparak, thank you so much for joining me to chat about your new book, which is called Scatter Brain.
Yes.
It's all about your life and it's all about ADHD.
Yes.
So I wondered, when did you first come to think you had ADHD and what were the signs that made you think that?
Well, doctor, I didn't put the ADHD together with what was going on for me for decades. But when I was a kid, I remember, especially when in the last year of primary school, when work got more important, I guess, and finishing homework, I couldn't finish it. I couldn't do the work that I was set, that I really wanted to do. And I wasn't a naughty kid. I loved school. I loved the studies that we did. I loved history. I loved English, but I couldn't do the work. And it was like something was yanking my brain away. And the problematic thing about the title ADHD, Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, for a start, I do not have attention deficit. I have hyper focus, but I can't direct it at will. Mm. And disorder, I don't think it's a disorder. I think that I needed to be taught differently. I needed to be spoken to differently. I needed to be told, it's not your fault. Let's think of another way we can address this. So it just filled me up with anxiety, and I masked by pretending to lose my work, pretending to have family emergencies that meant I couldn't do my work. So then I was just locked in this vortex of lying and making up stories, all because I wanted to be seen as good and studious. And that's what I wanted to be, but I couldn't. ADHD itself isn't the problem. It's not knowing you have ADHD is what can lead to the erosion of your self-esteem, to anxiety, and to these sort of indelible scars that we have. So to answer your question, I always knew there was something wrong, but I thought it was lack of effort on my part to make it right. As I got older, it just got worse and worse and worse because all my ways of coping with it got more and more damaging.
Do you think that being a stand-up comedian is a good career for someone with ADHD?
On stage, it was where I am so peaceful and my brain can go wherever it wants, and it can fizz and crackle and go as fast as it wants. And once I got the enough experience as a comic, it was really joyous. Now I know I have ADHD, I have so much more fun on stage because I know what it is now and I'm not fighting against it. Before, I'd be like, oh, you know, what order am I going to do my material in? No order, go. And that is the thing that's really changed for me. I no longer try and be structured. I'm not structured. I will never be structured. I will never have an Edinburgh show that has peaks and troughs and a narrative. It's not me. That's not me. Comedy's a risk. As a career, it's a huge risk, right? You have no idea if you're going to be able to make a living from it. I knew I would. But risk-taking it can be a blessing and a curse of ADHD. It's a curse if you don't know you have it and you are behaving really in a damaging way because you're not taking a breath to think. But creatively taking a risk, it's ADHD kind of becomes useful because you don't often think of consequences, and the consequences aren't going to be catastrophic. Worst comes to the worst, no one's going to laugh, you know. You will recover from that.
Yeah. Was laughter or making people laugh ever a masking mechanism for you?
Absolutely, because for a million reasons that I think I do sort of travel through in the book, I felt invisible. a lot of the time as a kid. Making people laugh gave me the attention that my schoolwork didn't give me, that my looks didn't give me, that my confidence didn't give me. And it made me feel present in the room.
And when you were in your teen years and early adulthood, what sort of things were you doing as kind of coping mechanisms to try and get through how you were feeling?
When I get shy, I overtalk, or I completely shut down. And I remember as a teen shutting down quite often. Like, I'd be on a date, if you can call it dates in those days. I'd be with a boy and I wouldn't be able to speak. Now, that is partly adolescent shyness, but I physically folded in on myself far beyond my adolescence. And then also I would tantrum. So then those feelings would build up. And then with boyfriends and with close family, I would tantrum. And I don't use that lightly. I don't mean, I'm just fiery Middle Eastern. No, I would be a grown woman, like lobbing a brick through the window if I was locked out. And that's not someone being a bit bad-tempered. That's someone whose brain chemicals cannot regulate their emotions. So emotional dysregulation is something that I've been learning a lot about. And I think about this a lot when I think about ADHD amongst people who don't have the secure, loving home life that I had. So if you imagine having that level of emotional dysregulation and having no support in your life, perhaps you've been abused as a child and every adult's let you down, the likelihood that you end up in prison is huge. And I've often thought I understand, there's a part of me that understands those people that just scream at someone at a bus stop. I kind of think you're not a horrible person, and there's no excuse for it because we're all responsible adults and we have to deal with our behaviour that affects other people, but nobody has given you the space to figure out what's going on with you.
You wrote in the book that you didn't know that you were entitled to a second chance. Where did that feeling come from? Is that the same as kind of the self-esteem and things like that?
Yeah, that was when I've messed things up in my work and other comedians have messed stuff up, but they've owned the mistake and they've gone, can we shoot that again? And I've just gone, yep, sorry, you were all right. I shouldn't have been here in the first place. And that is self-esteem that's been eroded. And that comes from a million things. You know, as a kid, it was really difficult to have parents who didn't speak the language, who then couldn't navigate the system effectively for you because they were written off. I mean, this is the 70s, 80s and 90s. So often they were written off as like, mad foreigners making a fuss. And I would see that. Things like that really affect you as a child. Like, for example, when people are racist towards you, right? Like someone would say something to you and you would believe it, that you were lesser and you were less than and you're not good enough because someone who you see fits in has said that you don't fit in. It took me a long time to understand that that's a part of me that has to be rebuilt. If you've got ADHD coupled with other things in your childhood that you haven't resolved, then you can think, I don't have a place here. And yet you're still there. So there must be a reason why I didn't give it up to become a social worker, which was always my backup plan.
And you write in the book that your son's first full sentence was stop that noise while you were singing a lullaby. Was it really?
Yeah. Stop that noise. Yeah.
And you do write a lot about parenting in general. And you're very, very honest. You're very candid about where it's gone wrong and how things are different now. So what things would you have liked to have done differently?
I think when my marriage broke down and my son was 2, if I'd had the wherewithal that I have now, I would have handled it differently. I did not know how to give myself space. I'd even, my brother was so worried about me. He begged me to go to meditation classes. Begged me. So I was like, okay. So I went to this meditation class and I was like, God, hurry this up. I've got stuff to do. I wouldn't do anything that meant being still. I didn't want to sit with my thoughts. And I couldn't. And so for my son, that meant mad, chaotic fun. Like I was the mum that dressed up as Santa up and down the road. And I was the mum that constantly had our house filled with friends and all the neighbourhood kids were always in my house. But I was also the mum that he saw lose her shit because as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, he wasn't putting his shoe on. He was running around, you know, playing with his shoes when we had to go to nursery. And I ended up throwing that shoe at the wall. Like, can you imagine? Like, he was terrified when I threw this shoe. And I saw fear in his face. And that was, as a parent, the most hideous experience to see your child scared of you. And I have been scared of my dad. I know what that feels like. And, you know, in a split second, I, you know, was holding him and I was apologising. That rage wasn't continuous. It was gone. Until the next time. And so I started seeing a therapist then to try and cope. And I look back on that time now, and even though it was a brief time, that behaviour was not okay. And I wish I had addressed it earlier. So that is a really hard part of my life as a parent to sort of confront. And when I went into therapy first in lockdown, that was the first thing I talked about in psychoanalysis.
Yeah. And how did you find writing all of this down and the rest in this book? What was the writing experience like?
It was really hard sometimes. Especially the parenting stuff was really hard sometimes. And also writing about my own parents was hard because I feel ferociously protective of them.
And what about the audiobook? What was narrating it like?
So writing the book was one thing.
Okay.
Reading it out loud for the audio was really hard. Much harder than I thought it would be. And I ended up getting ill. I ended up having to go home one day because I kept being sick. There was nothing wrong, but I was just being physically sick. And I thought, oh my God, this has brought up a lot.
Yeah. I
don't use the word trauma lightly, but I re-traumatised myself by reading it out loud.
Are you pleased with the final product?
I was quite proud that sometimes it would be... Because you don't always remember what you've written in a book, right? I'll be honest. Like sometimes people quote my book back to me. You wrote this. I go, did I? Because you get so lost in your own world. I'll read something, then there will be something... Not a joke as in, you know, right at the end, a custard pie in your face. It would be an appropriate moment of... lightness that I was quite proud of. I was like, good, because that for me that gives it humanity and that takes away the drama because life's dramatic enough.